Hello and welcome to Connected. I'm Divya Gopalan. So, do you know what Hallyu is? Well, if not, you can actually look it up in the Oxford English Dictionary. And that's because it's one of the dozens of Korean words that have been added to the English language over the past few years. In a nutshell, it means the increase in international interest in South Korea and its popular culture. Korean music, movies, and TV shows are the country's biggest and most influential export. And they're also regarded as the country's supercharged soft power. Now, Taiwan also has a vibrant film, music, and TV industry, unrestricted by politics or censorship. So why can't Taiwanese entertainment travel and go global with the same force? Well, to find out more, we are joined in Taipei by Terris Ko and in Austin, Texas, Hanna Huang. Thank you very much for joining us today. Welcome to the show. Now, Terris, I'm going to start with you. You're a U.S. producer based in Taiwan for film and TV and an advisor to TAICCA. Tell us more about what you do.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I am what they call, what we call here an ABC, American-born Chinese, and I was born and bred in the States, and I hadn't been back to Taiwan until I was in graduate school, and then fell in love with Taiwan and came back in the early 2000s, 2002, to come and write screenplays. And actually, part of the reason I came back then was seeing what was going on in Korea in the late 90s and early 2000s and what they were doing in film and TV. And I always thought to myself, why not Taiwan? Why not Taiwan? And while I'm here, I've had the chance to work more closely with local teams to try to figure out, as we get closer to trying to break through into global markets, what the best way to break into those global markets could be. And that's part of my job at TAICCA, Taiwan Creative Content Agency, to try to figure out how to support local content creators, including filmmakers, to put them in the best position possible to interface with global markets.
Hanna, some of that will resonate with you. You are the executive director of the Austin Asian American Film Festival. Tell us more about that, and in particular in relation to Taiwan-produced content.
Sure. Through our nonprofit organization, we've put on several showcases of Taiwanese film, everything from retrospective to contemporary film, funded by the Ministry of Culture and Taiwan Academy Houston. So through my work at the Austin Asian American Film Festival, we've been introducing Taiwanese film to the greater English-speaking audience and connecting to the Taiwanese American diaspora also that is in Austin, Texas, and the greater Central Texas area. One of the programs was done through Los Angeles County Museum of Arts, and that was a national online streaming program, so that had a much wider reach as well as our Prismatic Taiwan series.
Right. So, Hanna, you're in the U.S. Let me ask you this. There's a sense in the industry, especially the entertainment industry, if you could make it in the U.S., you can make it anywhere. So in that case, is there one element you can pinpoint that the Korean industry has done to ensure its success in the U.S.?
Well, there's a lot of star power coming out of Korea, which I think is one of the biggest reasons. All the star power that you're seeing amass in their music industry and in their acting and drama industry, TV drama industry, is quite massive. A second reason is certainly language accessibility. With Korean, there is a phonetic alphabet, so people can actually connect and learn Korean much faster than they can with Mandarin. Thirdly, I think there's an inherent branding issue we have as Taiwan, a country and a nation or an island or all these different things we're trying to call ourselves. And not to ignore any of the political issues, but there's very real political reasons why we have a brand issue, why we have we're kind of labeled as that ghost island, which Terris knows very well about with his podcast, Ghost Island Media. Personally, I think rather than trying to compare ourselves to countries like Korea, we should think about why is it that the golden years of Taiwan cinema, of Taiwan culture, how do we replicate that and bring that back and build on that rather than copying another culture's cultural significance in the world?
And Terris, do you have any thoughts on that? How do we replicate that or bring that back?
There is one thing that Korea has done over the last 20, 30 years, which has really helped them kind of connect with audiences all over the world. And when we talk about soft power, maybe nobody has done soft power better than America in the 20th century, in that it shared its pop culture, its music, and its film and its TV all over the world, so that audiences were kind of almost indoctrinated. They're used to seeing stories told the way that American films and TV tell them, which is not to say that's necessarily the right way or the best way, but it's just a matter of culturation where audiences are used to seeing stories told like that. And what Korean filmmakers did beginning in the 90s and 2000s was trying to find more exposure to Western ways of storytelling as a means of telling their own local stories, which Taiwanese filmmakers here, plenty of local stories, so many really interesting personal stories, authentic stories that we have to share here. And it may just be a matter of trying to figure out how to tell them in a way that audiences all over the world can be more readily plug into. Actually, audiences all over the world now have never been more primed to be able to receive stories like not only from Korea but all over the world. So it's kind of the perfect time for local filmmakers in different markets all over the world to try to do that.
Well, taking your point, Terris, about soft power, one of the key factors for many productions is money. And as we know, it's hard to compete with the reach of budgets of Hollywood's productions. So how can smaller countries like Taiwan hold their ground in the battle for eyeballs? Well, we asked filmmaker Jay Chern to step behind the scenes of Copycat Killer. That's a hit Netflix show from Taiwan, if you haven't heard of it. And this is what he found.
Hollywood TV and movies reign supreme all over the world. Filled with stars, big budgets, and visual effects, it's difficult for a small market like Taiwan to compete. So let's find out how Taiwan produced its first TV series that reached top 10 in 20 countries on Netflix and ranked number 2 worldwide with 17 million hours of viewership shortly after its premiere.
我们其实在运作每一个单元的戏剧的时候，我们其实都想到它能够不断的在产业界或者在观众心中看到一个新的高度，这是我们一直在努力的。那我们找了非常多优秀的人才，跟把台湾的能量去组合成这样一个故事。其实我们一直都是战战兢兢的，因为我觉得台湾的资源没有那么多。但是我们很有自由的创作空间。我觉得台湾最棒的就是我们是一个没有限制的自由创作环境。
On average, before online streaming platforms began investing resources into Taiwan, around 50 scripted shows of different genres would be produced in a year. But after Netflix, Disney+, and other streaming platforms entered the fold, close to 150 shows would go into production yearly. However, this still pales in comparison to the record-breaking 599 new shows that aired in the US just in 2022.
"为什么可以怎么样把一个影片做到国际上那么成功？说真的，不知道，就是很 surprise。我觉得可能这中间过程有很多，可能有10年了吧。我就是有一个愿望，很希望说，台湾的内容有机会到更大市场、更国际的市场去被大家可以理解。所以我们可能是非常有效的去学习说，像类型的语言啊、美式的说故事的方法啦，我们试着把那样的东西融到台湾的内容里面，这样。我觉得台湾的文化非常的多元，我们其实可以很接受各种不同国家的东西。因为台湾的文化好像有一种融合性，就是当我们吸收各个国家不同的特色的时候，我们可以把它转变成属于台湾特色的东西。所以像模仿犯，它一开始是一个日本的小说，可是我们有像美剧的或者韩剧的这种审美的摄影啊、剪接的节奏、音乐啊各方面的安排，可是最后我们有那种演员本身表演更共通情感的这种东西去让大家理解，所以我觉得这个整个综合起来，我觉得形成一种差异度。我觉得这个有差异度，然后带来新的观看的新鲜感。所以我觉得，当然一定 把内容做好是一个关键，可是如何运用市场的力量啊，或是说好的市场定位带动这个整个观影的热潮，也是我们在后续一直不断在跟 Netflix 合作上所学习到的一个经验。所以这个是我很乐观的，然后也觉得台湾应该就是把握这些机会。
Well, you can see the full version of that on the TaiwanPlus website and on our socials. So here's where I come back to you, Terris. You have recently been involved with Greener Grass Productions. Can you tell us more about your work with them and what they've been saying about kind of melding the different kind of elements of different, maybe Japanese or Korean or American movies and productions, and trying to bring it all into one big formula for success?
Yeah, so Greener Grass is one of the teams I work with here, and what they've been trying to do is to build on their momentum, build on their success so far, and they have this vision, this mindset that they're willing to try to reach out to global and try different things, whether it's regional partners like in Japan or in Southeast Asia. They're willing to kind of see what different kind of products can come out from these different collaborations. And they're willing to learn from different markets to see how filmmakers all over the world are developing and producing their film and TV. So I think to a certain extent, this mindset of being open to experiment and to exchange ideas has really helped them on the path of continuing to step-by-step grow over the last several years.
Now, Hanna, the producers of Copycat Killers have highlighted their partnership with Netflix, that collaboration, in helping them gain that platform exposure and that marketing kind of spin, of course. But on the flip side of that, there's an issue of copyright and ownerships that you have highlighted previously about, small companies perhaps not having the education in that. Can you explain?
Sure. I think in the distribution model, there are screening rights where you can screen at different festivals, you can screen at different venues, and pay screening fees or get paid screening fees. What we've encountered as a film festival is that often when we look into a Taiwanese film, they're very unwilling to work with us for screening. They're usually holding out for only the bigger screening festivals. We're talking probably Sundance, South by Southwest, like some of those bigger ones out there. But I will say there's a very vibrant circle of niche film festivals, particular ones like Asian American ones or Asian ones that would be very interested in Taiwanese film. But we found that every time we go and search, they're actually some of the most difficult films for us to secure screening rights for. I have encountered some issues with that personally. And then we see examples such as the film A Sun, which, was put on Netflix quietly. Netflix doesn't really give a lot of Taiwanese content, any Asian content aside from Korean does not get much exposure on Netflix within the US and globally in English-speaking markets. And Terris, I know you have a lot to say about this.
It's something that local teams definitely have to be aware of, that legally some of these systems work different in different markets around the world. And that for sure is actually one of the initiatives that we're working on here at TAICCA to help bring some of those resources to help local teams to interface better with legal, and also to help the law firms and the lawyers here to be in a better position to work with legal all around the world. I think the flip side of that, when we talk about Netflix and these streamers and how they work with local teams, we've seen a handful of local films in recent years. For instance, a couple of years ago, there was a film called American Girl, which did very well locally, developed, produced, and directed by a local director who had also studied AFI in California, Chinese language film that did well locally here in Taiwan, and then was picked up by Netflix. And as you say, sometimes when a film is picked up by a streamer, then it may be harder to coordinate screenings outside of whatever's. Yeah.
I will say in that instance, it seems that the American Girl team did negotiate that they could do screenings if the filmmaker is present. So you did see that film in particular go to a few festivals and Taiwanese film showcases if the filmmaker was present, which is unusual. That was different compared to other Taiwanese films before it, and likely due to the savviness of that team.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely on point. I think we've also seen, not only for that film, but for some other films with other streamers as well, though, is that even for festivals and screenings in the States, as long as there's communication between the team and then the streaming platform, there are these possibilities where the platforms are being more and more willing to understand that, yeah, there are these events that may help promote not only the films, but the filmmakers and then these different local markets as well, which ties into what's been happening more recently here locally in Taiwan. Netflix, I think, is a great example, who they're putting boots on the ground here in Taiwan, ramping up their team here to help develop in production with local teams. They're in planning to open up a local office eventually. And I think what they've done in the last year or so, well, longer than that, is they've shown that they've been willing to help local teams by providing resources, whether it's on the development front, the production front, or even beyond on the business front, to help local teams kind of figure out how to work best with not only Netflix, but just global in general. So that's been actually very encouraging to see that these global teams are recognizing the potential of Taiwan and willing to pump in these resources to work together with the local teams more collaboratively.
But the reality is these big streaming platforms are often out of reach of a lot of the smaller productions. So this is where I go to you, Hanna, about branding and marketing and perhaps the importance of what you say those smaller niche screenings are. And in that case, then how should Taiwan or Taiwan content present itself?
Sure. I mean, I think there's a very robust community of like local overseas Taiwanese and Taiwanese diaspora that has in the past always organized their own screenings. So you have some filmmakers that will take that route. They'll go and contact, students studying abroad or local Taiwanese association type of groups. But now with even more of a stronger network of smaller niche film festivals like myself, we actually have the ability to bring in diverse audiences that includes both that Chinese diasporic audience along with the audience that's local. What we're really wanting is the local audience to see it in terms of like that's the diverse audience, and then having them have the connection with the Taiwanese diasporic audience together. There's a big movement in America in particular on ensuring equity, ensuring diversity in not just the work we're doing, but in who's ingesting and who's consuming the work that we're producing, right? So there's a lot of effort being made to be inclusive of audiences where their stories are being told or their ethnic heritage is being honored. So I do think there's a big potential for those kind of two areas to mix and collide the way they haven't before. And for Taiwanese filmmakers in particular to start paying attention to the festivals that care about those type of diverse stories. In a bigger festival setting, you have less attention. There's more ability to have your film skipped because it might be playing next to a film that's a bigger reach or has a stronger presence of star power or funding even.
Right. And Terris, speaking of funding, the one thing the South Korean government has done is really pour money into the entertainment and film industry. And on top of that, at the same time, step back and distance itself because a lot of this content may not be positive about Korea. There's stories about poverty. There's stories about discrimination. Some of the Oscar-winning movies did not shed a good light on how Korean society was treated. Do you feel the same kind of impetus here in Taiwan?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to tag on to that last point very quickly. I think Phil Tanga mentioned it in the little clip about Copycat Killer there, that one of the great things about Taiwan as a market for film and TV is that there's this creative freedom, that there's not really any restriction, no holds barred on what you can talk about or what you can share, what kind of stories you can develop and produce. Regarding what role the government might play, for sure, in the past decades, the Korean government has been very proactive in supporting, in many different ways, how to help grow the entertainment industry and just cultural industries in general in Korea. And we've seen that here in Taiwan as well the last several years. I mean, that's the reason that there's TAICCA, the Creative Content Agency to begin with, which is a government program. We're supervised by the Ministry of Culture, but the idea was to create an institution that can be a clearinghouse to help support local content creators across the board, not just film and TV creators, but music, musicians, gaming, animation, future content like XR, VR. TAICCA is here to find ways to support all these local content creators. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. Now, more recently, the government here has been very proactive. The Ministry of Culture has been pushing for a new legislation and new programs and initiatives to help spur and promote investment into film and TV. Traditionally here in Taiwan, non-entertainment dollars into entertainment industries has been relatively non-existent. That kind of investment just hasn't really happened. But in recent weeks, there's been new legislation pushed to help provide tax incentives, for instance, to help promote more of this kind of investment. And hopefully that'll create a snowball effect in the local market to provide these funds for our industries.
Well, in addition to freedom, one of the other advantages in Taiwan, there's a lot that Taiwan can leverage, is its technological prowess. Nowadays, audiences don't like leaving too much to the imagination, so even modest productions need a healthy computer graphics budget. And for filmmakers, that translates into mind-bending special effects. Have a look.
然后呢，当然技术面，尤其是我们最重视这几年下来，我们把动画跟特效的技术一直磨深，像我们做的《茶经》，我们拍了一个1950年代的故事，我们怎么把时代面貌呈现出来？我们做这个模仿犯，或者是就是扮演这种比较惊悚，或者是说比较刑侦的故事，那我们就要做很深入的田调。我们跟检察官、警察、法律界的人士、医学界的人士做了很多的沟通，这个就是促使我们必须要去懂得说如何把手上的资源跟外部的资源。跟观众的需求做一个很合适的一种了解。
Now, once again, you can see the full version of Jay Chern's video on the TaiwanPlus website, YouTube, and our social channels. Now, Terris, back to you. You worked, that's one of the things that you have tried to leverage. It's Taiwan's tech industry superiority. How does that work in the film and entertainment industry? And is that being used to kind of give Taiwan better positioning in international markets?
Yeah, by all means. Yeah, whether it's for VFX or for CGI or even animation, Taiwan should be considered a hub, a one-stop shopping hub, where we have the tech, the hardware side, the industries that are here that have all the available technology to create these effects, whether it's in post-production or during production. But the flip side of that is that there's also the software side, which is the actual content development, where the local teams can be here to help, whether it's co-productions that are filming or doing post-production here in Taiwan to create their film and TV programs. And I think co-production is kind of one of the ways that we've been trying to help connect Taiwan with the rest of the world and let the rest of the world know that Taiwan is here as a potential partner for development and production. The whole idea is to let the world know that Taiwan is here as a destination for anything to do with film and TV. There's financing, there's development resources, there's production resources, there's post-production resources as well.
And Hanna, to production teams or content creators here, what would be the advice that you would give them? You talked about branding, you talked about taking advantage of the diaspora. How should they do it? And do you think there is that appetite in the US for the Taiwan content we're seeing now?
Certainly. One of the big things that locally as a community member I do is I'm very active in my Taiwanese American community. And in Austin, Texas, we host a big festival called South by Southwest, which is an immersive conference of not just film, but also music, interactive elements. So we have the VR, XR showcase, which there's always represented films from Taiwan in that showcase in particular. And I ran into some TAICCA colleagues of Terris this past year as well. So being able to be kind of the local connect for that, and having our Ministry of Culture overseas branch, along with our TECCO representatives in Houston, reach out to us and ask us for that help in creating a presence at those bigger events like that is really crucial. So we're ensuring that the audience is there consuming the films, and we're letting those festivals themselves know that there is hunger for that content, and there's a community behind that content too. So I do think there's a lot of connections to be made and to really connect earlier. Often the requests that we get from Taiwanese representatives that will be attending South by Southwest come within the last 1 to 2 months of the actual festival occurring, which it's very late to be planning anything. So I would really say that if you look for the boots on the ground early on and connect once you have a plan in place for wherever you're going in the world, start first with that Taiwanese diaspora and kind of see what connections you can get there first.
Sound advice. Thank you both very much. And on that note, we're having to end this discussion. But if there is one takeaway from this, it's that Taiwan does have the potential to reach a global audience. And perhaps the messaging should simply be, let us entertain you. I hope we've done a little bit of that today. A huge thank you to Hanna Huang in Austin, Texas, and Terris Ko here in Taipei. It's been great to have you on the program, and to our viewers, of course, it's been great to have your company. Thank you, and stay connected.